Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 3 for this news report today. Alright, so more scary scenarios for you. It says here the world of 2030, US declines, food, water may be scarce. Sorry everyone, but flying cars don't appear in the global trends 2030 alternative worlds. A report that the director of National Intelligence Office made public on Monday. Of course, this is what they want to happen. Says instead the National Intelligence Council paints a picture of a world in which the U.S. is no longer the unquestionably dominant global player. This is written by the Council on Foreign Relations and Policy think tanks. Like I said, this is something that's going to happen, and it's not because of just circumstance. It's not through freedom. It's through coercion and not having freedom that this is going to happen. Individuals and small groups may carry out devastating cyber and bioterror attacks, right? Well, there'll be a big consensus. There'll be a lot of small groups that are going to be really pissed off at what the government did, what the internationals and the Zionists who occupied our governments did in our names, and pillaged by the banks and stuff like that, and raped our futures. Yeah, there are going to be some pissed off people, and there may be some real militias and stuff like that, but most of them are going to be false flags, and most of them are going to be coming from government operations like feds and FBI, basically catching themselves in their own sting operations, busting themselves. It says, and of course with food and water running short, the biggest reasons of course can be, the biggest ones can be for food, weather modifications and what they're doing to the food supply. It's like they're trying to kill it, you know, like hitting us with rain for the past 7 days in a row. Going in here in the winter, and then the drought that we had in the summer. I mean, the food prices have already gone up because of the drought that they manipulated with. But also what? Then you have the water. You know, why would the water be running short? Why is there always this water scarcity? Do they know something that we don't? Are we heading in an ice age? Because I've covered articles where it says that water is actually in decline some places because it's forming as ice. The goal of this report is to provide policymakers with some idea of what the future holds in order to help them steer the right economic and military courses. Well, of course, we're not free, because if we were free, we wouldn't have a government, right? You don't really have freedom under a government. I hate to say it. I mean, you can hand it over to them, but either way, you're going to have what? It's going to help them steer the right economic and military courses. Well, if we were free in this doomsday Mad Max situation, we would have a totally free market, and we probably could recover, no matter all the scary scenarios that they try to paint for you, as if you can't make decisions for yourself, you're not intelligent enough. And then, of course, the military courses, special operations, drones everywhere, super surveillance, right? In this new utopia where people are heavily drugged and the population, there's overpopulation, there's not enough food and resources. They say, we do not seek to predict the future, which would be an impossible feat, but instead provide a framework for thinking about the possible futures and their implications. So it's just kind of funny because I remember seeing a quote about that, about how they don't have to predict the future because they make the future, right? So this is another very legitimate reason as far as the weather modification goes. Why would there be less water? Why would it be dry and arid? So it says here, climate change analysts suggest that the severity of existing weather patterns will intensify. They're talking about all, like I said, the rain the last 7 days and stuff like that, and the droughts in the summer, all due to cooking the ionosphere and with electromagnetic frequencies and that, or people call it HARP, and then cloud seeding and aerosol spraying, with wet areas getting wetter and dry areas becoming more so. But yeah, when you redistribute water, you're going to have droughts in other places. That's just the way it works. But that's what they say now. This wild weather, I think it was Ban Ki-moon said. He said that this is the new normal now. So Vatican calls for world government and a new world order. The leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Benedict, the 16th, has called for the establishment of the world government and a new world order. In a speech made at the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace on Monday, December 3rd, he called for construction of a world community with a corresponding authority to serve the common good of the human family. The human family. The latest remarks by the Pope and the Catholic Church come as no surprise, considering that in 2010, the Church sought to establish a new central world bank that would be responsible for regulating the global financial industry and international money supply. That's right, he was pushing for like a global tax, transaction tax. Interesting though, because you have individuals like Mark Dice that I just saw a video, I just happened to see it yesterday, where he was talking about, oh, people talk about the conspiracies about the Vatican. And he's basically watering it down, because I think people were basically calling him an Illuminati agent, and then so he referred to that. So it's kind of funny that that article just came out. Superhumans, supercities, and supercomputers, the U.S. intelligence vision of 2030, so kind of what we were going off. It says we are at a critical juncture in human history which could lead to widely contrasting futures. So I just read this. This is kind of sickening. Within the next few years, with the next few years ripe for experiment, the future is malleable. Com suggests making no time like the present to start perfecting space-age advances once thought to be out of this world. Says, on the contrary, though, the NIC, the National Intelligence Council, seems to think that cyborg civilians and instant super cities or Babylon cities are the thing of the not-so-distant future. They know this because they're designing and shaping this society for you to be in. Here's some double think for you in this Brave New World or 1984 world. It says, our effort is to encourage decision makers, whether that's decision makers are people that carry out the actions or the will of these private think tanks. Most of your politicians are actually a part of this Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg Group. You know what I'm saying? They work for the corporation. So that's where the decision made. They don't actually make the decisions. They just carry out the decisions made by private closed-door meetings, whether in government or outside, to think and plan for the long term so that negative futures, i.e. positive futures for us, like say the government collapses and we start forming our own little communes, our own little tribes, our own little worlds that we want that are designed so you can go and pick your own little village that you want that's suited just for you. No, they don't want that. With free trade and all that, healthy food. They don't want you planting your own seeds. They don't want that to occur. And they want positive ones to have a better chance of unfolding, like super Babylon cities that are high-tech Big Brother states, right? And everybody else that doesn't want that will be living outside in underground or something. It says that influence might be a bit impressive for some. Impressive, I'm not impressed, but it says as it includes suggestions for the world of tomorrow that will be necessary to advance them, the human race, in order to make use of dwindling resources as populations expand around the globe. So, the human family, the human race, are we talking about aliens here or what? The most plausible worst-case scenario, the report adds, involves the risk of interstate conflict increasing to the point of the U.S. draws inward, right? They don't worry about what's going on in other people's affairs because they're not highly centralized. It means they have more freedom. And globalization stalls. That's a siphoning of your wealth and redistributing across the world. From there, megacities will flourish and take the lead in confronting global challenges. Isn't that great? Because they actually have a whole website dedicated to this plan 2050, where they're going to have all these mega regions. Because you don't want people out in rural areas. You can't track them as much, right? You can track people in these cities, like in Britain or Chicago. Another possibility, writers suggest, as inequalities explode, as some countries become big winners and others fail, without completely disengaging, the U.S. is no longer the global policeman. Well, whoever said we wanted to, right? We were tricked into thinking that we're a country for big business, for big business, by big business. We always have, right? Kids are brainwashed in state schools that what? And the state schools, the curriculum is written by globalists. They're written by these psychologists. That the U.S. is a global army. I mean, when you have the National Guard saying, you're the freedom fighters for the world, it's like, what the hell? No. You should be worrying about your state. Why the hell are you over in Iraq or Afghanistan fighting for the opium trade to support the drug trade? No, that's not global policemen. That's a bunch of people being misled and lied to and propagandized that they're fighting to maintain their freedom, when really they're fighting for corporations and they're fighting to maintain the drug trade. It says top NSA spying chief, if you ever get on their enemies list like Petraeus did, then you could be drawn into that surveillance. It says national security laws are being used to stifle dissent and more than to just protect us from the bad guys. As they noted in 2008, while Hoover's FBI had its enemies list and carried out numerous dirty tricks, including COINTELPRO, the current governmental actions are a lot worse. Former head of the NSA's Global Digital Data Gathering Program, William Binney, said that not doing anything wrong isn't grounds for avoidable trouble. It says the problem is if they think that they're not doing anything that's wrong, they don't get to define that. The central government does. New DVRs will use cameras and microphones to monitor their owners. Of course, this is all to deliver a better product and service to the customer. And advertising. So it says here, I think Google ad targeting is crossing the line. Verizon filed a patent for a cable television box that uses sensors to record what you're doing and target you with specific advertisements that relate to your mood. I think there was even something spooky as recording the conversations of all the people and how many people are in your room watching the television so they can, for advertising too. Public buses across the country quietly adding microphones to record passenger conversations. So they already have cameras, now they got the microphones. And I think it was in Baltimore that they started this. It says transit authorities in cities across the country are quietly installing these microphone-enabled surveillance systems on public buses that would give them the ability to record and store private conversations. Well, I guess they're not private anymore, according to documents obtained by news outlets. It says here the Department of Homeland Security is funding them. Yeah, Baltimore and another San Francisco. So, of course, they say the use of the equipment raises serious questions about eavesdropping. Well, you can go ahead and ask all your damn questions, but you're not going to get any answers. So, it's like if you send your child to a brainwashing, re-education, indoctrination camp to love this system, that this is how it's always been. You're born into it, and you got to love it. This is freedom, baby, freedom. And they get whatever, told to shut up or for speaking their mind, or they get put in a little box, the timeout box, isolation box, or they get RFID trackers on them, or any other thing that they get abused or something like that, and the parents are like, oh, I think that's my child. I was never asked to have their blood put in the DNA or something like that, or to be given emergency contraceptives. You put them in there, It's quote free daycare and free babysitting, so you can go off and work for the Federal Reserve System, and so you can't really complain. If you want to be on public buses, this is what you're going to get. You can't complain, right? It sucks because that's what they want. Part of the Megacities of 2050, that's what they want. They want everybody on public transportation. Only the elites will have cars so that you can be completely tracked and traced, like the money system and that. But when you think about these Babylon cities, eventually, that's why I said people who don't want to do this, you're just going to have to leave, right? You're going to be living in squalor or something like that outside these megacities, because they won't allow you to sit there and grow your farms and grow your crops and whatever. You'll grow them and they'll just come and they'll just probably just mess them up, blow them up, or burn them down or something like that. So that you can't eat and you starve, so that you have to be relied on that system. You have to go to the cities. In order to do that, you gotta get out into the database. You gotta do all that to start to getting things that you quote need. So a lot of people are going to be resorting to stealing, right? There's only so many things that you can do to survive, and when you can't grow your own crops, you can't find a job, or you don't want to sell your soul to get a job to work for these megacities. Well, then you're going to have to resort to stealing. So, and of course they're going to have big apparatuses for that, anti-smuggling and stuff, task force. A Cowboys mull device to immobilize players' cars. So these are where people tune into every Sunday and even Saturday football. These are people's role models. So it says in the wake of the single-car alcohol-related crash earlier Saturday, killed a practice squad linebacker and left a defensive tackle facing intoxication manslaughter charges. They said, obviously, we do whatever we can do, including the Cowboy players having electronic devices designed to immobilize vehicles when a driver is impaired, called SafeKey, and they said they're considering it. Many people nowadays don't try to write up directions or stop to ask people and socialize with people to ask them for directions. No, they rely on their smartphones and these little technology apparatuses. Apple Maps glitch could be deadly, says Australian police. They warn motorists about using these apps on the iPhone's latest operating system after rescuing several people stranded in the wilderness, saying errors could prove deadly when you get off the beaten track. Kind of like that The Office episode where the guy drives into the water because it tells him to, and he knows he's doing it. As if it's not bad enough with texters while they're driving, text messages direct to your contact lenses, new technology that will allow information such as text messages to be projected onto a contact lens worn in human eyes has been developed. And man, oh man, it says the projected images will use wireless technology. That's great. Like, we can't get enough Wi-Fi. This is GGN, I'm Darko. Thanks.